How is everybody doing tonight? Welcome back to another episode of Boys in the Zone. I got two of my good buddies here, David and Lord Dilly. You know the man. First of all, how are you guys doing after the Cowboys fell to the Saints?
Um, the way I could describe it is like, and this is the way I could describe it. I don't know if anybody can relate, but if you ever like gone out and maybe had a little bit too much to drink, and the next morning you just like can't get over it, and you just feel really bad, and no matter how many showers you take, you just still feel dirty. That's how I feel after watching that game, man. It was bad.
Yeah, Dylan.
Yeah. Well, first off, cool ass intro, bro. That's like the coolest video
Thank you.
intro ever. I dig that
Thank
a
you.
lot. Must be new. I hadn't seen that on here before. That's pretty good.
Nope.
Um, I feel all right though. Like I wasn't really mad during the game. I just kind of laughed. Like it was almost like to the point of insanity, where it's like, what is going
Yeah.
on? And now it's just been going through tape and just trying to think of what's next, more than kind of harping on that. But obviously, we got a lot of thoughts that I'm sure we'll get into about that game.
Yeah. It. Well, if I can share my thoughts about it, I'm kind of in between you guys, I guess. You gotta laugh at it just because it was like so night and day from Cleveland week one to the second week and the Saints. I had a little bit of thoughts of this is a possibility just with Clint Kubiak, and I mentioned it on the last show, just what he brings to the table as the former passing game coordinator for the 49ers last year. And his dad was a longtime coach for the Broncos, won a Super Bowl with the Broncos, Gary Kubiak. So he's a guy that knows a lot of football, but more importantly, he knows that Shanahan offense and how to really exploit matchups, make it really, truly all of his skill position players positionless, and really throw different looks at you and get you in a kind of frenzy of I don't know what to do from a defensive standpoint. And then they just absolutely destroyed you on that outside zone scheme, running scheme. So well, let's just jump into the recap portion of the show and talk about this. So the Cowboys win the toss, they defer, they kick it off to the Saints, and then they march. I want to say 80 yards. They got it at the 20 because it was a really good squib kick by Brandon Aubrey. So they march 80 yards down the field, and it's a long drive, and they got the points. The Cowboys kind of come back. They get the 3 points. Should have probably continued with that drive, and hopefully well, not hopefully now that it's over, but should have got seven. But then the Saints come back with the deep bomb, put you down 14-3 in the hole. The Cowboys were in unfamiliar territory at that point. They haven't seen this at their house in such a long time. It's strange because I knew that this was a possibility, but at the same time, I don't think anybody foresaw them popping out 14-3 that early. Talk about those two first drives for the Saints and that first one for the Cowboys. Go ahead, David.
Man, so whenever I saw the Saints, well, first of all, whenever I saw that kick by Aubrey, I was like, okay, that's
Yeah.
nice. That's exactly what we're looking for. The squib kick right there rolls into the end zone. So I was kind of hyped up to see that. And then after I saw the offense just go and go and go. Actually, at the 3rd and 2, I was kind of excited. I was like, okay, we can get off the field really quickly. Let's stop them right now. That didn't happen. Obviously, the over route, Carson was a little bit behind. They got the first down there, and then it was just odd. It was just, I mean, if I was a Saints fan, I would have thought it was beautiful, but I'm not. So it was like
Yeah.
really, really bad just to watch. And but even after they scored and Dallas went down, Dallas was moving the ball, and I felt okay. Had to settle for 3, but at the same time, I was like, okay, they got punched. Whatever happened in the first drive happened. Let's come out here now. Let's fix that. And dude, almost like before I could even get that thought out of my mind, 70 yards down the field, I was like, and I played safety in high school, so I'm like, dude, stay deeper than the deepest. What are we doing? So it
Yeah.
was tough, man.
Yeah, and that first play, man, of the whole game was like it was the perfect kind of setup for the game because Damone Clark shot the gap, made a nice play, and then just missed the tackle for a 3-yard loss on Kamara. He squirts out for a yard or two, and it's like that could have been a statement. And I'm big on momentum and disruption plays, right? And so now it's 2nd and 13 instead of 2nd and 8 or 2nd and 9. And maybe that changes the play calling on the first drive a little bit. Maybe Kamara doesn't have that confidence, breaking that
Yeah.
tackle. Maybe Damone Clark, this defense gets a little bit more confidence making that tackle to start the game. And I just feel like it just from right then and there, it snowballed and it never stopped, ever stopped. And, it was curious to me by the time the second drive was over, I was like, where's Overshown at? And I know, the second drive is 2 plays and a touchdown or 1 play, whatever it was. But I'm like, where is Overshown going to see the field today? And I think by the third drive, he might have got his first snap. I'm not sure when his first snap officially came, but by that point, I'm like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll bring in a clip a little bit later about that. What Mike Zimmer was kind of thinking with keeping out Overshown. He said it's just because Overshown doesn't really play in their base package, and they didn't anticipate playing that much in that nickel package that they did against the Browns, but. Against the Saints, they desperately needed to stop that run. That was why they were on that nickel package. But to me, Demo proved to be that guy that diagnoses good and can get in the backfield and get those tackles for losses. So I'm at a loss of words for why he's not in that base package, especially when Leofau wasn't really. I think he was guessing a lot, and then Clark just wasn't good, in my opinion, and run fits. So
He hasn't been.
yeah, exactly. And so we'll get a little bit into that later, but like I think we're at the 14-3 mark. The Cowboys come back, and Brandon Aubrey gets a 38-yard field goal, and then the touchdown for the Saints goes right back to Alvin Kamara for a 57-yard screen kind of pass. And so within 2 plays, really, the Saints are up on you by 21-6. And I think at that point, it was just like a shocker for this entire team. Like, we're going to have to chase points. Like, the Cowboys, the last 2 years have not been in that situation, minus the Packers game, of course. And then that very, very season opener against the Tampa Bay Bucks whenever they had Tom Brady a few years back. But other than that, I mean, this was a big shock. And I think it came with the shock of the defense, really. 6 straight touchdown for the Saints. And the tackling was bad. The run fits were bad. The defensive tackles, every single one of them have been bad as far as run defense. And I think that they're actually graded out as 3 of them are in the top 5 worst defensive tackles in the NFL, according to PFF. This is. And then Osa is just outside of the top 100. Just inside of the top 100 at 97, I think, which is his number, 97. So, or maybe he's 103. I can't remember. Either way, none of those guys have been good enough, which poses this question: should the Cowboys look at going outside of the building to hopefully find somebody off the streets, or should they make a trade? What is it? Because they've already made the trade for Phillips, who was horrible last game, and then they picked up Joseph. What is your guys' plans? What do you think moving forward they can do with that defensive tackle position to kind of aid that the woes as a run defense?
Yeah, well, Phillips was 3rd on the depth chart behind an undrafted free agent rookie and like a guy that has hardly ever played in his career. I think he started maybe 2 games over the past 2 years or some crazy stat like that I read today. So trading for him, it's kind of more of a hopeful thing than anything else. And then you're bringing in, Linval, and it's like we're bringing in these guys that it's just mass, it's just body weight, hoping that this body weight can do something. But I mean, you saw in this game, the offensive line it's reestablishing the line of scrimmage by 4 yards before anybody's even touched. The edges are getting blocked out of plays. And if that's what's in store for us this season, I don't know what you can do short of making a trade, because there's not going to be anybody on the street that's worth anything at this point. Maybe there is that I just don't know about, but I mean, we're 2 weeks in the season. You got to think those guys are probably on teams by now. But to be fair, I'm not sure who's out there. So I think the only way to fix this is either scheme it up better. I'm not really sure how you can do that with the personnel you have, or play better or make a trade. So I don't really have an answer there.
Yeah, I'm not. I wouldn't say if I may go, I wouldn't say I'm 100% ready to say that we need to make a trade. Obviously, what we saw on Sunday wasn't what we want to see going forward. But at the same time, I'm not big on overreacting to these losses. I know that I said I couldn't wash it off for a couple of days, but after you do, and then you go from there. I mean, one of the and I know we're talking defense, but one example that I do use is I remember last season the Dallas offense was like terrible. And I know that they put up a lot of points, but a lot of them were defensive touchdowns. A lot of them were short fields. It wasn't up until I think after the bye week that they actually started to kind of click, and CD and Dak became what they became. And I'm not saying that the DTs are going to become all pros or anything like that, but at the same time, we have such a small sample size. Before we panic and start looking at other teams to make trades with, I think you kind of give these guys a chance to bounce back and see how they do. Not only them, but Zimmer as well. I remember mentioning before that I'm excited for Zimmer to be here. I'm excited to see what he brings, but I'm more excited to see how he adjusts after, we get punched in the mouth. And that's definitely what we did.
Yeah, and I'm gonna pull up some of these plays right here just so you can get a feel and rewatch it, sit in your misery again, um, because these defensive tackles, you can see Linval Joseph just gets absolutely bullied off the ball right here, and all of these clips are from John Owning, great follow on Twitter, just all 22 though. Um, anyways, this one in particular, he just gets pushed back. You cannot get pushed back like that when you're supposed to be the trash can guy in the middle.
They're
And
instantly losing their gap integrity too. On every one of these
exactly.
you're going to show, I'm sure it'll show it. It's despicable, honestly.
And look how quickly, and I think that was Osa too. Like look how quickly the center beats Osa and gets onto the linebacker. That stuff is the prime example of what you can't have happen, and it's continual on film. You can see these two guys just get bullied, get pushed up the field. It was multiple 7, 8, 9 yard gains for the Saints all night, and the biggest thing with just winning the game in general is it comes on first down. And if you can't win on first down and you can't push them back, in those second and longs, you don't have a good chance to play sound, good defense, and you're always playing catch up the remainder of the game for your offense. And so they were picking up easily 6 and 7 yards on the ground every single time. Um,
They hardly faced third down in the first half.
Exactly, and I even tweeted out at one point. I was like, if I'm the Saints, I'm not kicking. I'm not kicking a field goal, and I'm not punting because you haven't proven that you can stop me any times on in 2 downs. In 3 downs, you hardly ever stop me. In 4 downs, I don't think you can stop me. So why would I ever kick it off? And it was just continual. Alvin Kamara. Now, I didn't realize that Alvin Kamara was back like this because his contact balance is insane. The dude is. I'm just happy I wasn't playing him in fantasy this week. But my God, he had some amazing runs where he just stays up, and you just have to be like, okay, I understand that, but
He
it
almost
was
looked like
continual.
Marshawn Lynch at times in there,
It
getting through
did,
these big piles and just coming out unscathed. And what's interesting is too about the film, I saw, I think the first one you had up there, these outside runs, they're targeting Trayvon Diggs a lot with these outside run plays, running to his side specifically. It's because he'll put his nose in there and he won't avoid the contact, but he's not making a play.
yeah.
He's just not big enough, strong enough, or physical enough. And I think there is a lack of desire there a little bit. But he gets picked on a lot, so it's something we need better from him.
Look at Linval Joseph right here. I mean, he just gets picked up.
Yeah.
I mean, that cannot happen as a defensive tackle. And it's frustrating seeing this time and time again on the film. There is one positive I will say about this film is that for the young guys, you can use this as teaching film, and it's gonna be a good film session with a guy that really understands defense and understands where you're supposed to be on each and every single position, like Mike Zimmer and the position coaches that we have that holds these players accountable. But overall, man, poor effort, poor integrity on the gaps, and I think just too many guys guessing in the run defense. So go ahead, David. What were you seeing as far as this run defense and overall defense, really?
I mean, you definitely nailed it. It was poor effort. But one thing that Coach Zimmer did mention whenever he was interviewed after the game, or maybe it had been the day after, whenever it was. But he did mention that he should have had the guys more prepared. Um, that reminds me of like the Rex Ryan days when we had him, or yeah, what was it, Rex or Rob? I'm getting them mixed up right now. Whenever we had him as a
Rob.
DC, Rob,
Yep.
Rob Ryan, and I remember. I mean, Barry Church has spoken about it. He's spoken about it. He's basically said that they would have so many different packages that they would get confused on the day of the game. I mean, I'm not saying that this is the scenario like that, but it does make me question that when Zimmer does say something like that. I should have had them more prepared. I mean, of course, it could just be coach speak, but I mean, the way these guys were, Dylan was saying, they're losing their gap integrity immediately. These guys are guessing. It's almost like they don't know what they're doing out there, which is, obviously a recipe for disaster when you're going against an offense as explosive as, the Saints. I mean, they put up 47 week one. They put up, 49 against us. I mean, we also have to kind of tip our hat to them as well. They're playing good football as well.
Yeah. No, and that's one thing is we are going to see how good the Saints are. I believe they play the Eagles next week, so we're going to see how good they really are. But this has been a reoccurring issue for the Dallas Cowboys since 2016, 2015, maybe, where we just could not stop the run. And
The CJ Anderson game, right?
yeah, the Rams absolutely tore us up in that playoff game. But overall, this needs to get solved, and a lot of people are saying we need to do it through the draft. I don't think they know how to draft defensive tackles. So when one comes on the market that's good enough, that's big enough, that can be that guy, just go pay him. I'm sick and tired of this, and one, it doesn't start with just one player. So just getting one guy isn't good enough, but one guy definitely will help you, and it will go a long way for this defense. It's so poor at filling those lanes, and especially just keeping your linebackers clean is the biggest issue I see right now because none of the DTs that we have are doing that. Any more comments on the defensive tackles in specific?
Yeah,
I
I'm
will
ready to
just
talk
say
about
regarding
Go ahead, Dave.
I will just say regarding drafting defensive tackles versus going out and getting them. I think a lot of people, like Levon in the chat, mentioned that Jerry may not want to spend money on the flashy guys and stuff like that. I also think that a lot of people lean on the fact that Dallas drafts so well, and I do think that Dallas drafts well. I think they draft corners pretty well, except for Fat Man Pack. I think they draft off offensive line very well, but they could also suck at drafting DTs. Like two things can be true, and I think that's too many times people get hung up on one or the other, So, yeah, I mean, I think I'd just go out there and whoever the biggest, baddest dude is, I don't care, man. Throw the sink at him. I'm tired of getting bullied like this.
Eduardo says Micah keeps on being neutralized with running at him, zone reads, sweeps, pin pulls. Eagles, Packers, Niners have given the league the blueprint. I actually think that Micah was probably your best defensive player this game, which is complete reverse. I know what you're talking about, Eduardo, because that has popped up in the past, but Micah was actually pretty decent this past game in run defense. Now, did it make a difference? No. It starts with those four guys up front, and especially your interior guys. But I lean to not want to blame Micah for this. And especially just because Micah is that guy that gets moved around so much that he doesn't get a tip on what a specific player across from him is doing on each and every single down. Like, if you're specifically only playing right side and you never get moved around, you can find out, oh, okay, the left tackle is doing this. He's trying to get me in this block. He's trying to push me wide. I need to, counter with the spin inside, and you can kind of get those tips and the know-hows. But Mike is being moved around all throughout the offensive or along the defensive line, where he doesn't always see the same matchup over and over and over, where he can get those cues and tip-offs.
Yeah. And I'm looking at his PFF grade for week 2. It's 86.2, which is pretty damn good. 77.1 in run defense, which is, it's okay for Micah. I'll say one thing about Micah. They talked a lot in training camp about moving him to some more off-ball linebacker, right?
Yeah.
And if there was a game to do that and also to have over shown in, it would be this game where they're running these sweeps, these outside zones, and you need guys with speed who can play sideline to sideline. They didn't have either guy out there really at the second level doing that. So I would have liked to have seen more of that because he did get schemed out of plays a lot. Did get double teamed a lot. When they came to him, he was okay in run defense. But I would have liked to have seen him off the ball this week if they were going to ever do that.
Yeah, yeah, I
And
completely agree.
in hearing some of Michael Parsons, his interviews and stuff like that he's done, he has mentioned that Zimmer has given him like the keys. I think he keeps saying like he's giving me the keys to the defense. I have the ability to change calls, to do this, to do that. If that's the case and that's what's going on, then obviously there could be some growing pains with that. Maybe he needs to get on the same page as Zimmer. There's some miscommunication there as far as what they're going after or what they want. But I'm not 100% sure what giving me the keys really means. But if he's out there, changing the play or making adjustments that maybe Zimmer wouldn't do himself, then that could be an issue as well, which, of course, that's just speculation.
Yeah, yeah. 21-6 at this point in the recap. The Cowboys follow that up with an explosive play to CeeDee Lamb. That is shown here. It's just a play action pass, play action, fake handoff, the deep over, and CD just makes a play. Yards after the catch. I do want to point out Tyler Guyton in this play because he gets caught just trying to peek and trying to maybe help his teammate right here on the delayed blitz from the linebacker. And then he just lets his guy right past him. And it's just like Tyler Guyton, he played really well for what he was asked to do in game one. Game two, he was a serious problem in pass pro and run blocking for me. I specifically don't think anybody was good in run blocking this past game, but especially Tyler Guyton. He was bad in pass and run blocking, and you got to be at least giving me one. Like Terrence Steele has given you a pretty good option at right tackle with the run blocking, but I don't know how to fix this running game. And if you want to put it all on Dak, that's one thing, but how do you aid Dak in this offense? And does it come with trading for a guy? Does it come with giving a different running back, the keys to the Ferrari, as Jerry would say? What is the remedy for this run game right now?
David?
So again, like I mentioned earlier, the Dallas Cowboys offense wasn't very good last season until about after the bye. Again, you can go to the box score and you can see that they put up a bunch of points, but 40 against the Giants, I think there was like 2 defensive touchdowns and there's a bunch of turnovers, and then you had the Patriots where there's defensive touchdowns. There's like a lot of the Jets. The Jets weren't good anyways. There's just a lot of polishing the turd, in my opinion, because I didn't think that the offense was very good. And I kind of still held that same sentiment before the season even started. I try to remind people like, hey, you have 2 rookies starting on the offensive line, out of position, you know what I mean? So it's like, give them time to gel. The offensive line is a unit, they communicate with each other. They have to understand what the guy next to them is doing. And you give that a couple weeks, it's going to look ugly. I knew it was going to look ugly. I didn't know it was going to look that ugly, but I knew things were going to look ugly at times. But, you just got to remember they're a unit. They're going to gel together. Now, if they continue to do really, really bad, I'm not really sure if getting a new running back in here is going to make any difference at all, if they're not blocking very well up front.
Yeah. Dylan?
Yeah. I'd start by seeing what Flournoy can do if we're talking about making the offense as a whole better. Maybe deactivate Brooks for a game, put Flournoy in at 4 or even 3, maybe, if you want to, but definitely at least 4. Tolbert had a good game, so I'll give him his props, but he just doesn't look like a guy to me that is a game changer. And I like my 3 or 4 to be somebody who has a skill set that maybe he's not very well-rounded, but can do 1 or 2 things well. And I want that because my 1 and 2 should be more well-rounded, right? 3 or 4, you're looking more of a specific skill set that you can take advantage of in key matchups. So I think Flournoy is that guy. He's got speed. He can block. Let's be honest. Brooks cost us 6 on the Cooks end around missed block, and then cost another possibly 14 when he slipped on the slant. And then the Saints ended up scoring 7 points off the interception. So, I mean, the game was over at that point. So there's 2 key plays there that he messed up on. And if you can't trust the guy, you can't play the guy, in my opinion. So that's where I start.
Yeah, I would, first, before I get this out of my head, I would call the Saints, ask them, hey, do you have any plans for Cedric Wilson? I know he's on your team. We would like him. I know that Cedric Wilson would be good as your number three. He's been good in the past as your number three. So um, definitely call the Saints, see what they would give you for him, or what you could give them for him. But Brooks in specific, and then I'll get to Tolbert after that. Brooks, like you mentioned, the end around to Cooks completely whiffs on his block. It's got to be better there. That's the difference between maybe 3 points, or well, 3 points, or picking up that first down and staying ahead of the chains, and possibly getting a touchdown. Dare I say it? Um, and then the slip on the top of the route is just inexcusable. Dak cuts that ball. You're the third guy. You're really, you haven't proved that you really deserve that spot, and Dak is trusting you to get out of your break and cross face on that DB and be able to pick up a catch and pitch is what it should have been, to fall over and just leave him out to dry right there. And that's the difference of a 10 or 14 point swing. And at that point, it was 28-13. The Cowboys are driving. They probably waste out the remainder of the clock. If they get a touchdown, that's 28-20 heading into halftime, and you get the ball back after half. That's a completely different scenario than allowing the Saints to get that interception and march down the field and get another touchdown on the Derek Carr 1-yard run. So really, really have to figure out what's up with these wide receivers. And I personally think wide receiver 2 is a problem right now. Brandon Cooks, you have got to figure out how to utilize him in the manner that other teams in the past have. Maybe he has lost a step, but I've seen him get beat people over the top in training camp. I saw it all last year, especially against Washington and some lesser teams. Of course, those are lesser teams, but the Saints defense really didn't stop you as much as it appears. You really shot yourself in the foot a lot of times, getting penalties behind the chains, not making blocks, and then just the interceptions. And one of the interceptions was inexcusable by a wide receiver. One of the interceptions inexcusable by Dak throwing into the triple coverage. We'll get there. On to Tolbert, though. Tolbert, you mentioned he had a good game. I really think outside of 2 plays, he didn't have a good game. You talk about the deep ball on the sideline. I think it was some corner route. Dak has him open. Sure, Dak didn't get a step into it and rip the throw and rifle it in there. But Tolbert still has to catch that. It hit him right in the hands. He didn't attack the ball. He waited for the ball to come to him. That's just rookie mistakes, dude. Like, this is NFL football. You have to imagine that the safety is coming up to make it hit on you. Secure the catch, because I think right after that, 2 plays later, is when Dak threw the interception with Brooks falling down. I might be mistaken about that, but got to catch that one. He did do a really good job where he was attacked the ball on the deep pass by Dak and went up and just made a spectacular grab. I will give him credit for that. But another route where it was like at the end of the game, or maybe into the half, I can't even remember, where we're kind of have a chance to get some points on the board going into halftime, and he just is like 2 inches from the sideline, bends his route, like just terrible route running. I don't understand it. When you are the outlet and you have the chance to pick up 15 yards, but you catch it so quick or so close to the out of bounds, you have to go out of bounds when nobody's there. Just simple stuff like that just ticks me off, and it just proves why we need to get another wide receiver in this building.
So do you consider promoting Flournoy to 3 or 4?
Absolutely. I said before the game, I'm like, Flournoy out again, inactive again. Yeah. That hurts. I said something along the lines on Twitter like, I don't understand that, because he gives you something that the other guys just don't. A red zone weapon when you're already missing your number 1 red zone weapon in Jake Ferguson. 2, he gives you better blocking. And 3, he gives you a guy that can work along the sideline and make some boundary catches contested. Now, Tolbert did have the nice contested catch, but other than that, I don't understand, because Brooks and Tolbert are kind of a redundancy to me. I know obviously Brooks is a little bit bigger. He's more of the X guy, and Tolbert can be utilized as, your Z or your X or whatever you want to use him as. But overall, I don't understand that.
Yeah, and you mentioned Cedric Wilson earlier. You know who Flournoy reminds me of is Cedric Wilson. I don't know if it's the half sleeve that he wears, that Wilson wears, or what it is, but like just when he's running his routes and he looks fluid like Cedric Wilson did. And that's what I want my interior slot guy to be. I want him to be fluid and quick and agile. And I don't think that Tolbert really is that guy.
Yeah. Gerald brings up, or Geraldo and Christina bring up, let Dalvin Cook get in there, get some runs. Cowboys value their draft picks too much to trade for anyone. I don't. I'll say in the past couple years they have went out and actually spent some later round draft picks. You think of Jonathan Hankins, you think of the Phillips trade, you think of Trey Lance. So they're willing to part with some later round draft capital. Outside of Aubrey, who is someone who played well in your guys' eye? We'll get to that a little bit because I personally think that Dak played really well, especially in that first half. But because I kind of skipped over it a little bit, I do want to get this video of Mike Zimmer talking about Overshown and bring up this snap counts really quick.
Real quick, I wanted to talk about the wide receivers real quick because
go ahead.
Because in my notes, whenever I was taking notes during the game, the first thing that I wrote was a question. I said, "Do we have a wide receiver problem?" Because I was really big on Cooks coming into the season. I just really like him. I think he is really dominant on those corner routes in the red zone, like we've talked about before, Dylan. But yeah, for whatever reason, the offense just doesn't look very explosive. And again, I know I've been harping on give it time. The offense started off slow last season, but at the same time, it's like you got your two, wide receiver one, wide receiver two back. You know what I mean? CD's looking good. I mean, obviously he's going to have a little bit of a rust because he missed training camp. But outside of that, like I don't feel like anybody is any threat at all. And it hurts me to say because I really did like Gallup, and some of the guys in the chat know how much I did like Gallup. But Tolbert, he just gave you a Gallup game, in my opinion. Not good Gallup game. He gave you a last season or whatever, his last season here Gallup game, where it was like, where the heck is he? Oh, he caught one deep ball. Cool. You know what I mean? Like, you need more than that out of your three. You need more than that out of somebody who's going to get that much playing time. So, I definitely do think that Dak could use another threat. And whether that be Flournoy or whoever it is, I'm kind of even leaning a little bit more towards like, hey, let's go out there and see. Part of me was like itching, like bring Amari back. You know what I mean? But I don't think that's ever going to happen. So.
But last year, Cooks didn't have the volume. He hardly had any games over 3 receptions. It was very little volume, but he had touchdowns. So he made the receptions count. And the only guy with any volume was CD. Now CD missed camp. So was there some hangover there from not having those interactions is the question.
Dak missed him on that touchdown pass.
Right.
That could have been just a miscommunication because of the lack of camp. That's a big part of it.
Yep.
Well, I think Dak and CD both alluded to that being a miscommunication between what they saw. Whenever you have like those option routes where, if you see this, you break it outside. If you see this, you turn it inside. CD must have saw one thing, Dak saw another thing. I think they were talking on the sideline about that. But, to y'all's point, that comes with missing training camp. You know what I mean? Like, of course, I know he's a vet. I know Dak's a vet, but, you add new wrinkles here or there, just getting those reps, getting those mental reps, that goes a long way, and you see it on the field on Sunday.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and another thing, like you missed Ferguson a big portion of that game, but it's one thing when Cooks is routing up guys in 7-on-7 drills and training camp. 11-on-11 football when you have 2 rookie offensive tackles and the defense isn't worried about play action and biting on the play action because they know that even if you do run the ball, it's only going for 3 yards. That's a big thing. So you got to figure out your wide receiver 3 and wide receiver 2 for that matter if you're going to be forced into being a pass-heavy team because you can't run the ball. So that's one thing I'm really looking at the Cowboys to make a move. Whether it's signing somebody off the street, like a Hunter Renfrow, I know he's still out there, or whoever it is. The guy from the Saints, Mike, what's his name? I can't even remember his name. Out of Ohio State, like slant merchant guy.
It's not coming to me. I'm thinking about Marcus Colston for some
reason. I'm thinking Michael Thomas.
Yeah, Michael Thomas. There you go.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so
I wasn't sure if that was the
he
guy.
could be out there, you know. I actually know he's out there. So one of those guys off the street maybe would be good, or going and trading for somebody. Like I just don't get it. But back over to the DeMarvion Overshown. These are the snaps for the linebackers in week 2. 53 for Kendricks, 39 for Clark, Leofau 37, Demo 17. In my opinion, I just don't understand that. You can't have that from your probably your best linebacker, in my opinion, at least from want and just hunger standpoint of it. And I think that everybody would agree with that on the panel. But this is Mike Zimmer's thoughts on that. And let me play this video really quick. Hopefully it'll play.
Like the week before, we didn't anticipate being in so much subgroup packages. This week, we didn't anticipate being in quite so many base down packages. So, each week is going to be different for each guy. And talking about Demo, he's coming off an ACL, missed all of spring, didn't really get out there until we got to OTA. So he's working his way back in, and that will continue to go forward as we go. But he's going to get plenty of reps. He is that we've got some linebackers.
Yeah. I want to think like, okay, sure, Demo, that's fine. Demo's not in your base. But at the same time, when you're getting killed in your base and none of the guys are filling the correct gaps and all of them are not getting off blocks and truthfully playing with a very little actual knowledge of where to be and just guessing, I think that you've got to make a switch. Am I the only one that thinks that? Or, I mean, stop me if I am, but
No, my first question is, why is he not in your base? I mean, I know that. I mean, I don't know. I have no idea. Like outside of Kendricks,
he mentioned
obviously.
the ACL. Obviously, that is a you don't want to throw him out there and give him 40, 50 snaps a
Right.
game coming off the ACL. But at the same time, he tore his ACL in preseason last year. It's a long enough time removed from that, and he's a guy that has shown, especially week 1 and all of the preseason games, he's a guy that just plays with anticipation
Yeah.
and a hunger to the ball, and
So
that's what you desperately needed.
should Trayvon Diggs be on a pitch count then too? Because he played almost all the snaps in this game, right? And he tore his ACL,
Yeah.
2 months later or a month and a half after Overshown did. So should he be on a pitch count as well? Because he wasn't. So that
That's a
seems
good
like
point.
it's a gap filler kind of excuse making type thing to me. I just don't think they were prepared. And my question is, what does Clark bring that Overshown doesn't bring to the table? Because I don't see it. I don't think Clark should even be on a roster at this point from what we've seen in his NFL career, or he should be a guy that could be a practice squad guy or just not active on game day.
I won't go that far, but shouldn't be starting for sure with how bad he's been against the run for sure. David, your thoughts on that?
I think my camera's going out a little bit. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, my bad. On my end, it's like super glitchy. But yeah, I mean, Clark, I had like high hopes for Clark. I've talked to my buddies. Eduardo is one of my buddies, and I told him a lot of times, like, dude, Damone Clark's going to turn it around. He's going to look really, really good, like he did at LSU, yada yada. And man, he just hasn't. I've been wrong before. I'll be wrong again. But yeah, at this point, I'm like, as much as I like Clark or was rooting for him, I don't care. I want the best guy that we have. And to me, the best, I mean, obviously it's Kendricks, but the second best guy that we have right now is Demo. Get him on there. I mean, and he plays with a passion too. He plays with a passion and a fire that I feel like this defense is missing. He's playing with that same passion and fire that I feel like Ferguson brings to the offense. We need somebody like that for the defense, and I think that's him. Keeping him off the field, I think, is detrimental.
Yeah, and maybe I go a little far in saying he shouldn't be on the roster, but I think back of what has Clark ever done? Like, have you ever seen him make a play? I can't think of any. I'm sure he has. I just can't think of any. And like in sub packages, okay, so put him in nickel. But does he belong in nickel? No, because he's not kind of the fast guy that you need in nickel. So it's like, where can he actually fit? He doesn't play well against the run. So I mean, what's he doing? I guess is my question. Where does he fit?
Yeah, and that's one thing that I've talked to, again, Eduardo in the chat, that's my buddy. It's one thing that I've talked to him about is I told him, he's in here, he's making tackles, he's doing well, but that's not what I expected out of him. I expected him to come in here and make some game-changing plays, and he hasn't done that. So to your point, Dylan, yeah, I mean, as much as I was rooting for the guy, like I'm cool with just letting him sit, man, because we have a young, hungry stud who can go in there and maybe make some plays, and I want to see what he can bring.
Yeah, I don't want my linebackers making assisted tackles 12 yards down the field. I want them meeting guys at the line of scrimmage, or at least taking on blocks at the line of scrimmage, flowing downhill and meeting those blockers. You saw in week one, there's a specific play I saw Overshown attack the edge, take out the tackle, and it allowed another guy to make the tackle. And like that, we need that. Where's that at? That's what we need.
Yeah, I agree.
And not only that, I'm sorry, real quick, just to piggyback off of that as well. That same play, when Demo took on the edge and allowed Kendrick to get the tackle, Demo didn't get the tackle, but he still got up and was flexing and shaking his head like he was happy that he did his job. Like, you need more guys like that. I know I didn't make the tackle; it's not going to show up on the stat sheet, but I'm this fired up that I did my job and my teammate got the
unselfish
tackle.
Guys willing to give up their bodies for the sake of the team, and that's what you didn't see against the Saints. Saw guys getting beat immediately off the snap and they're playing patty cake on the second level with these blockers, catching blocks instead of attacking.
Yeah. We did just bring up this Brooks play on just not holding his block. I just want to bring this up because it should have been a first down at the very least, and you've got to hold that block right there, and then you've got 89 out there. I think that's Brevin Spanford.
Yeah, nice block.
Like that's probably a touchdown in reality, if not a touchdown, at least like to the 3. So you potentially leave out 7 points right there, and it's a 4-point swing just by that play. And then I want to go to the very next one, which is the interception, or no, not the interception. Did I get the interception? I guess I couldn't find the interception, but before the interception, Dak's 13 of 16, 144 and a touchdown. And I know a lot of that is CeeDee Lamb making plays after the catch, but it's got to be said that stuff right there is the difference between a good team and a team that can make playoffs and a team that can actually make a run and be a Super Bowl team.
When was that Cooks end around? Did you have that in the film? Was that second quarter? That was second quarter. That was before the interception, right?
Yes, this is before the interception.
Right,
yep.
Second quarter.
And then here's the while we're here, I might as well just bring this one up. This is the miscommunication that we were talking about earlier with CD. Dak just thinks that, hey, you should go to the pylon instead of the post. CD thinks you should go post instead of pylon, and that's kind of where you get the miscommunication. I mean, I don't have a problem with where CD went. I think that he was going to open room or open space, and it probably would have been a little bit harder catch if he did go where Dak anticipated him to go. But like that's a ball up the seam that Dak rips with Ferguson, and he had a really good one last year. I think it was against I want to say it was against the Eagles, just like this to CD, and he ripped it in there.
I mean, so just watching this, EJ, I think Dak was wrong here. I honestly do, because that safety carries over right there. He drops down on Cooks. That leaves the middle of the field open. CD has a guy that's playing outside leverage. You don't want to attack outside leverage. You already have the inside. Safety already dropped down. You got to hit that. You got to hit that seam.
Yeah. There's plenty
I
of
do
room
think that's
between
Dak.
those two. And that there's plenty of room. I completely agree. It's just one of those things, man. You've got these are the ones you got to hit, and you can chalk it up to not being there at training camp, whatever it is. I think Dak was really sharp, minus a few plays, and this was definitely one of them.
And going back to that, can I talk about the Jalen Brooks stuff real quick before we move on?
Yeah, go ahead.
If I'm doing my math right, if we score a touchdown on that end around or a play after the end around, whatever it might have been, and just before halftime without the slip, if I do my math right, I think that makes it 21-28 going into halftime, getting the ball back with a chance to make it 28-28 at that point. I think I did my math right, but that's a totally different ball game at that point, right?
Let me because I got the play-by-play right here. So touchdown, we get the field goal right there. So it would have been 13-14. They scored another touchdown, 21-14, 21. So it would have been 28-27, actually.
Yeah. So there you go.
A whole different ball game.
Yeah.
That's if you keep pace and score touchdowns on all your drives.
Right.
Which is,
But it was possible. I mean, they were in position
Yeah.
to do that. Like, they were moving the ball before the interception on the slant, and they were obviously moving the ball. They're about to be at the 3-yard line, 4-yard line, or in the end zone on the other one with the end around. So, I mean, it was possible.
Absolutely. Somebody had a question earlier in the chat. Is there a player of the game for you guys? If there was for them, they would probably been Aubrey for them, or outside of Aubrey. Sorry, who is someone who played well in your guys' eyes? My player of the game probably would have been Dak. He kept you in that game. Realistically, you'd had no semblance of a run game. Your offensive tackle, rookie offensive tackle, was not very good yesterday in pass pro. And then overall, you had to keep pace, and I thought that he did a good job of that, except for punching it in when it was needed down in that red zone. But other than that, he's really my only guy that I could claim as, okay, he's player of the game. If there is one, I just, who would it be for you guys?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to pick. Just the shiniest piece of trash.
I mean,
honestly.
Obviously, a player of the game was Alvin Kamara, but for the Cowboys side, let's say.
For sure.
Right.
No, I mean, I think that just so I don't say the same person that you do, because I was leaning towards Dak, but actually after seeing that view of that play where the safety drops down, he has somebody playing outside leverage, CD goes in. If Dak makes that play, to me that's an error on Dak, not on CD. I mean, CD made the huge play to kind of keep you in the game. I mean, I know that he didn't do magnificent, but I guess I would have to say CD. I think that if Dak hits that pass, I mean, we're looking at CD as having a monster game. So I'd say CD.
Yeah, I'd say Schoonmaker played better than I thought he would.
Yeah, he did.
Wasn't brilliant, but he looked like a serviceable number 2 to me. Bring him out in 2 tight end sets, and he looks like he's a serviceable guy. So I guess that's a positive thing going forward once Ferg gets back.
Yeah, I think he was 6 for 6, 43 yards, average of 7.2. So, Schoonmaker, good call from you, Dylan. That was a point of emphasis I made, kind of reviewing this game and looking at this game beforehand. Is you're probably not going to have Ferguson, so getting what you can from your tight end too is important. And I thought he stepped up really nice. He had that one-hander that was really nice.
Yeah.
And then
It was
he
his
followed
first
that
catch,
up with
too.
another. Yeah, exactly. Follow that up with another back-to-back play. I did want to bring up this Nick Herrera, Nick_30 Herrera 34 on Twitter. He brought up 4 other premier quarterbacks. He says their first halves: Stroud, Mahomes, Goff, Rodgers. Doesn't really matter what order you see this in, but these were their drives in their first half. Field goal, touchdown, field goal, punt for 13 points. That was for Stroud. Field goal, int, touchdown, fumble, punt. That was for Mahomes. That's 10 points. Int, field goal, punt, end of half. That one's for Goff. And then punt, touchdown. That was for Rodgers. 7 points, 6 points, 10 points, 13 points. Dak got you 16 points and a half. You equate that to the whole game. That's 32 points. That's good enough to win in the NFL. Yep. Dak was not the problem last game, and that's even including an interception that Dak really should not have on his resume because of a wide receiver slipping. So just a little food for thought for the Dak haters out there.
Yeah, and to piggyback on that, I saw a lot of people on Twitter, Facebook, the whole nine, using this game and somehow comparing it to the shootout. What was it, 2013 maybe, the shootout with Denver when Manning was with the Broncos and Tony Romo, and it was like a 51-49 game or something like that. And they were just like, look at Romo. He kept scoring points regardless of his defense giving it up, yada, yada. And I'm just like, dude, it's just a different scenario. Like, you can't just be like, Romo one time had a game where he put up 49 points.
Right.
Dak should have done that now. It's like, I'll never understand like the hate for not just Dak, but any Dallas Cowboys quarterback, because I was standing on the table defending Tony Romo back then, and I'm standing on the table defending Dak now. I mean, when Romo made the boneheaded plays and interceptions at the wrong time, I admitted that there were bad plays, but I wasn't going to just blame him, for giving up 50 something points to Denver. It wasn't his fault. He wasn't playing defense. And I think the
And,
same mentality applies to this game.
and just adding context, you've got your starting tight end missing for Dak this week. Romo had Witten, he had Des Bryant, he had Terrence Williams. He probably has Cole Beasley in that game, some other slot, who knows. Then he has 3 All-Pro offensive linemen: Tyron Smith, Travis Frederick, Zach Martin, who was better back then. It's just it's not apples to apples. Like, you've got to understand that. I mean, for how well Dak did in the circumstances of not having a running offense, and really outside of CD Lamb, nobody making plays for him minus 1 grab from Tolbert. It's just, don't compare those two. I think that the reason why you were in the game was because of Dak Prescott. But that's enough of that game. Went really long on the recap, rehashing all that. Let's jump into the next test, which is the Baltimore Ravens. They are actually 0-2. They lost to the former Super Bowl, or the reigning Super Bowl champs, and the Kansas City Chiefs in Week 1, and then they follow that up losing to the Raiders in Week 2. So they're a hungry team. They desperately want to get on to the winning mark. And their next few games, it's at Cowboys, then the Bills, then the Bengals. They have the Commanders, which is, they should pick up a W there. But then they have the Bucks and the Browns following that. So they have a very difficult schedule upcoming. They're at a crossroads in their season already. They desperately need to win. The Cowboys, you're playing 2 straight at home where you have been a juggernaut. Do we see this team actually losing twice at home? They've been really good coming back off of losses and making up for it in past under Mike McCarthy. What is your guys' keys for this game? Obviously, it probably starts with that run defense. They have King Henry, they have Lamar, but does their defense worry you? What is your feelings going into this game? Go ahead, Dylan.
Yeah, I've never been a big Derrick Henry guy, and maybe it's just a personal thing because he screwed me over in fantasy football like 8 times in 1 year. So probably is where it all stems from. But he's like 800 years old in running back years. He's got a lot of mileage on him, similar to Zeke. And at some point, that it's got to slow down for him. It looks to be slowing down now for him. So as a running back, he doesn't concern me too much. But I know how weak we are and how weak we've been against the run, and specifically at D tackle. And so I'm very nervous about that. And then on top of that, you have to couple in the fact that you've got the best running quarterback in the league potentially here with Lamar Jackson. And so are we going to see overshown in the game on quarterback spies more? Are you going to see Micah playing on the second level more quarterback spies? I mean, what's the plan for that going to be? Because you got to spy him almost every single play or have a plan for that. And so how does that affect the pass rush if Micah's doing that? And so there's a lot of, I think, chess match type scenarios involved in this defensive game plan for Zimmer. So I'm excited to see that. But it's all going to start with stopping that running back. That's where it all's going to start. In every game, you could probably say that for this team. So
yeah. David?
Well, the Ravens are 0-2, and so they suck, obviously. And, Lamar is just a statue back there, so we're just going to eat all day. No, not really, obviously. Yeah, I don't completely agree that King Henry doesn't really strike fear in me, just because I see how bad that this defense plays against the run. I mean, Mike Anderson shouldn't have struck fear in us. James Conner shouldn't really have struck fear in us. Like, there's been running backs of lesser caliber, in my opinion, that have come in here. And if the offensive line will be bullies, then they'll be bullies. You know what I mean? But outside of that, yeah, Dylan did bring up a good point. I did like how Demo was spying on Watson week 1. I thought that was just really awesome. It allowed him to, really show his speed, close in. Everybody saw that play 1,000 times where he closed in on Watson as he was rolling to his right and got the sack. I think that it's going to be a much tougher test with Lamar. He's elusive like crazy. Arguably the best running quarterback that's ever played. I'm not going to say I agree or disagree with that, but it's definitely up for debate. So yeah, I think that they present a lot of issues with that. Also, I feel like Zay Flowers, right, is his name. I think he's been doing pretty good too as well this season. Being that being that reliable guy for Lamar as well. And I think that this as far as, could I go defense as well or no?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, as far as defense goes, I think that they have a pretty stout defense. I think they have really good linebackers, maybe the second best linebacker in the league, behind oh boy from San Francisco. I don't even want to think about his name right now because he's
Fred
just
Warner.
so dominant. Yes, man. But yeah, I mean, I think that defensively they're going to be pretty tough as well. I don't feel like they're a defense that Dallas can't move the ball against, but they're definitely no slouch defense.
So I just looked it up because I was a little bit curious here. The Ravens rank 23rd in offensive line run blocking. So when I say I'm not worried about Derrick Henry, it's not the fact that it's Derrick Henry. It's the offensive line that I'm the most concerned / not concerned about. I think the running game for them is going to depend on what that offensive line can do against our DTs versus more so what Derrick Henry can or cannot do anymore.
Yeah, but
Another
just so you
thing,
know,
though,
oh, I'm sorry.
go ahead, David. Okay.
Just so you know where I'm coming from, my bad. They can
Go
be
ahead.
ranked 32nd. They could be ranked 32nd in offensive line in rush offense, and they'd still strike fear of me because we've seen what these DTs do, and I'm
Sure.
so fearful of teams that want to come in and just smash mouth. Sorry, EJ.
No, I was just gonna say that a lot of Derrick Henry's work comes through just line up across, block your guys, and go and get those inside runs rolling. Not a guy that gets outside with that speed and whatnot. Like once he gets going, he's hard to bring down. But a lot of his work is in between the tackles, and there's not a lot of pin and pulls and taking your right guard and pulling him all the way across the formation to get out on a cornerback and stuff with the Ravens offense. So not as worried about their running game, just because I think Kamara's a better back. So I don't think it's going to be to the same level. Here's what I'm a little bit worried about is if they're stubborn and they don't want to play the linebackers that should be played. Demo needs to be on the field at all times, in my opinion. He gives you better coverage skills than Clark, and he gives you better run defense than Clark and diagnosing of what's happening in front of him where he can get tackles for losses. You force the Ravens into second and longs, that's going to help you win this game because for all, Lamar Jackson's glory of 2 MVPs, he's not a precise thrower of the football. And I know a lot of people want to throw out the advanced analytics and stuff like that. I watch games of the Ravens all the time. He misses throws that other quarterbacks simply do not miss. If it's down the field, he can throw it. Like it's not a question of, he doesn't have the arm talent or anything. He just sometimes misses them straight up. So you're going to be saved by that a little bit. But you're also going to force them into being a running defense. And then that's where you play that quarterback spy with Demo. Contain. Once he gets out of the pocket, you've got to wrap up, be sound in your tackling. And I think that you got this game. I really do. I think that the Cowboys have the ability to really dice up their corners, and not that they don't have good corners. I like the matchup because, and sure, they have what's their safety's name? Hamilton, Kyle Hamilton. And he's a good coverage guy on your tight ends, but I really think that CD can exploit these guys, Marlon Humphrey and why am I forgetting the other corner's name? It doesn't matter. Cooks and CD, I really think can exploit their matchups on the outside because they're not the most handsy DBs up in your face. I know obviously they want to press you and jam you and try to get the timing off, but I don't think that there's the same level as kind of what we saw with the Saints and especially with the 49ers, and that's what really the Cowboys have trouble with. So I kind of like this matchup a little bit defensively as long as you can keep Lamar in the pocket and play that quarterback spy, and then offensively, sorry, I just really think that Dak is going to have I've got this. Like, you can trust in me to have more than one touchdown in a game. I can get you 2, 3. And, call me crazy. I'm going to be in attendance. So I'm hoping that Dak goes for 3 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns. I mean, that'd be cool to see. But I just I get that they're hungry for a win, 0-2, but these Cowboys are going to see this film and they're not going to be happy about it either. So that's where I'm at with that.
Can I ask you about Lamar? Because I haven't watched a ton of their games, right? Just what's on prime time and whatever. Does he have a problem with processing what he's seeing, or is it really just an accuracy problem when he's throwing these mistakes, making these mistakes?
I will say he's not very nuanced as far as throwing his wide receivers open. So in order for the deep ball to really work for him, he's got to. It's so weird when you're talking about quarterbacks because the depth is such a big problem. A lot of quarterbacks like the crossing routes because that's easy to see when your guy is open.
Sure.
When it's down the field, a guy can be 3 yards away and be this close. It appears like this close to you because of the depth. So I don't know that he has the depth perception to really understand when his wide receivers are that open, and he tends to overthrow his receivers a lot down the field. So I think it's like a little bit of both, not understanding the nuances of, I got to throw this guy to this position so he can run under the ball and put a little bit more loft on it. I think that he sees it and then he's like, I got to throw this right away, and doesn't have that touch and stuff on those balls. So it's a little bit of both. And
Okay.
I think that you'll get a couple plays by, let's say, Kalen Carson, where and he was not very good in the past game either. But you'll get a couple plays where as long as the wide receiver isn't working across the field and he's working down the field, you're going to get saved a little bit by Lamar just missing his target. We'll see. Maybe he goes, all pro and MVP level Lamar, but I kind of like that matchup when the opposing quarterback can give you, a couple freebies. And credit to Derek Carr. I have a bet going actually with another guy on the Grid Network about Derek Carr that I said Dak would throw at least three more touchdowns and throw for at least 350 more yards than Derek Carr this season. It's not looking good for me so far because Derek Carr has been on fire so far. That deep ball to Shaheed actually had like a 1.6 separation percentage whenever he released that. So he's just dotting it up right now. So all credit to Derek Carr for sure. I don't think that you're going to get that same swagger nor precision from Lamar.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what Likely brings as well. I know that kind of hurt you because you had the other tight end, Andrews. But I'm interested to see if Likely can continues his progressions and continues showing up because obviously, as we all know, we've known for a very long time that when a quarterback has that tight end that they can rely on, that makes them a lot more comfortable throughout the game. You know what I mean? So I'm hoping that Dallas has a plan for Zay and Likely, and I'm hoping that the DT show up a little bit better this week, and Demo gets every snap. Honestly, I want him on the field all day.
Yeah, it's weird with them because they'll play a lot of 12 personnel with Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely, and they're wide receivers minus Zay Flowers, and I think that Zay Flowers is crafty. He's good in and out of breaks and stuff like that, but you've got a lengthy cornerback in Trayvon Diggs that if he is in trail, he can sneak up with some nice speed and just his long arms, and then Kalen Carson, I think that he has a size mismatch against Zay. And as long as you're just not getting beat on those quick developing routes, I think you've got a good chance to shut down their passing game. It's really just that run of Lamar breaking contain and getting positive plays out of nothing. So, Dylan, anything else on the Ravens? And then we'll move into how do the Cowboys get to 2-1? What's the recipe for getting there?
Yeah, nothing on the Ravens. To get to 2-1, man, it's they got to figure out this running back situation. Got to figure out the offensive line, how to run block for these guys. And I think really, I think something they're missing from the offensive side as far as running backs go is scheme fits. Like they're not using these guys appropriately, in my opinion. I think Deuce Vaughn is a good back. I think he can be a good back. And he's got to run between the tackles, obviously, because you can't just be a running back and not do certain things. But you also have to be used in ways that are appropriate as well. Yeah, running between the tackles, but also let's get him a swing pass. Let's get him a screen. I haven't seen a screen pass from the Cowboys this year. Like let's use him to his advantage as well. And then, Dowdle's more of the overall kind of good at everything back. And then obviously Zeke pass pro and short yardage. I also want to see some more Hunter Lipke. We haven't seen, I don't think he's gotten a carry so far this season. I want to say maybe he got one against the Browns. I'm not sure, but where is he at? A big deal was made about him and what's going on with him. So let's get him the ball a couple times this game and see what happens.
Yeah, that's a good point for sure.
Yeah, I don't really even care to see Lipke running the ball, but I mean, I'd like to see him. Like I remember with Mike McCarthy, he had Kuhn, and he just used him a lot. Just dump offs into the flat. Occasional wheel route or something like that from him, and I just really don't feel like he's utilized him much at all. I do feel like implementing him in the offense would help, and I think that Dylan knows we've kind of gone back and forth on this sometimes, but I'm not really big on Deuce. Period. Like I remember talking before the season and mentioning that if you're going to give, a little screen or you're going to get a guy in space, I'd much rather get Turpin in space. I'd much rather get him a little screen pass or something like that going. They've even run Turpin out of the backfield before, and I thought he did a really, really good job. That's just me. I feel like he could be a little bit of a liability in the run game. I mean, in the pass blocking. Actually, not a little bit of a liability. I think he could be a large liability in the pass blocking. But at the same time, I do know that, maybe he could be shifty, get lost behind those linemen and stuff like that. But as far as right now, I'm kind of like, we'll shelf Deuce for a little bit and we'll figure out what we can do with him later on down the line. That's just where I stand.
One of the best ways that you can counter the blitz and counter these schemes these defenses run is do what the Saints did. You saw them their big touchdown on the screenplay. Cowboys ran a blitz. I think it was Damone Clark was blitzing off the left side. So you're down a linebacker. So you're getting these offensive linemen out against less defenders now in the second level. And why not use them in that approach? And I've got these numbers here I have pulled up too. I think it's kind of interesting. Downey, I forget his name, Tom Downey on Twitter pointed this out. Per PFF, Deuce Vaughn, he has 6 touches this year. He's got 4 forced missed tackles. Rico Dowdle has 20 touches. He has 2. Zeke has 20 touches. He has 1. So Deuce has more forced missed tackles combined than Rico and Zeke, and he has 6 touches. He has 15% of the running back touches. So he's obviously more elusive. He's breaking tackles more often than those guys are. And, I'm just not really concerned about his pass pro more so than his productivity with the football in his hands. And the other one is when you look at yards per touch, Deuce Vaughn right now is averaging 3.5, but he's only got 6 touches, so you can't really tell there. Dowdle's obviously the most productive at 4.6, and Zeke's got 4.1, but if you take out his 15-yard broken play, it goes down to 3 yards per touch. So he's not really effective at all whatsoever. He's got 20 touches, averaging about 3 yards a touch if you take out the big 15-yard random broken play that he had against New Orleans. So I think Deuce can be productive. We just need a more of a larger basket to pull the data from before we can really judge, I think, his productivity. And it looks like they had that plan with the Saints, but that game just got out of hand quick. You saw the kind of Turpin and Deuce sets of the backfield was interesting, but they couldn't really do anything because they were behind the whole game, and they had a kind of abandoned, I think, their game plan for Deuce right in the beginning.
Am I the only one that wants to see Deuce on kickoffs instead of Wanye Thomas?
Right. I don't understand that at all. I mean, that's why he's on the team, right? For his special teams capabilities. Let's get some more defensive snaps for Wanye, and let's get more special team snaps for Deuce. He's playing punt return. He's blocking on punt returns, and he's doing it well. Let's get him on kick return as a secondary kick returner.
Yeah. And another thing is, like you mentioned, the pass pro with Deuce. If he can't pass pro, just send him out on a route. Don't ask him to pass pro, because what it requires a linebacker to have to pick him up, disallowing him to engage the quarterback or work on those delayed blitzes. So Deuce
is free to go catch the ball.
Exactly.
Right? If they're gonna blitz, so
I don't understand that.
It depends too, though, because if they're doing like a zone blitz, right, then the linebacker doesn't have to deviate from his blitz. From his blitz, he could just continue to go after him. You know what I mean? So if they send 5, you have 5. If they send 6, and you have 6. You know what I mean? I'm sorry, and you have 5. It just depends. You know what I mean? And then we have seen situations where Deuce does kind of leak out onto the side, like into the flat, and he's been overthrown because he's just so tiny. You know what I mean? Which isn't his fault.
True.
But if you do have a free blitzer and he gets his hands in Dak's face.
I mean, fair point here. Fair point. Like you said, he was overthrown, but a lot of those came from Trey Lance. So is it really overthrown or just Trey Lance?
Yeah, and I'll argue with myself here too. Dak was just blitzed and threw the ball into the dirt to Zeke. You know what I mean? So it's like maybe Dak has like Zeke eyes and Deuce eyes, and he accidentally threw it at the ground thinking Deuce was out there.
Well, it does require a different mental motion, I think, to throw to Deuce at times, depending on where he's at in the field versus some of the other guys, because he is a full foot shorter than some of these other guys. So there is a difference, to be fair.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I'm not. I don't know. I'm not a Deuce hater. I've never really been a Deuce hater. He's my size, so I'm like rooting for the guy. But at the same time, like I don't, in my opinion, honestly, I don't care to see him so much that I don't want to see Cook. And I know that we've talked about that as far as like, okay, bring Cook up, take Zeke out. But I just don't see a scenario where you would take Zeke out. I don't mind having Dowdle, Cook, and Zeke as your backfield. You know what I mean? But
I just feel like with Cook and Zeke, you have an unnecessary redundancy. And then if you take Deuce out for Cook, well, who's going to play special teams? You can't have 3 running backs and none of those guys play special teams. So you're losing that with not having Deuce. So there's a multiple kind of factor equation to deal with there. And I'm with you that I don't think that they necessarily take out Zeke to bring in Cook, because I think they love Zeke, and that would be an uncomfortable conversation they'd have to have, and a truthful one with themselves, that they want to be honest with themselves. That's what they should do if they're going to make a move. I wouldn't make a move yet. I probably wouldn't make a move next week either. I give it until probably week, maybe, 4 or 5 to really start determining what we have back there and if a trade needs to be made at that point. Because I look at a trade more so than Cook in my eyes.
And I can't remember if it was Steven or Jerry. I can't remember which one was on 105 through the fan, and basically said that they don't anticipate any changes in the running back room this week.
Yeah,
so
it was Jerry.
I mean, so we're still going to see Deuce back there, and which is, like I said, which is fine with me. I just don't. I don't know. I just don't know. Like legit, I just don't know what he can actually do. I'm excited. I hope that he does do well. Obviously, we're all rooting for the same team. But I do think, like mentioned earlier, it doesn't matter who's back there running the ball if the offensive line isn't going to run block well, you know. Yeah. But I truly feel, man, just the offensive line is a unit, and it takes games. It takes real life action and real life trials and tribulations, going through it with your boys and learning from these experiences that you start to gel. So I hold out hope that they're going to do a lot better going forward.
Absolutely. All right, 3 quick points. You don't have to elaborate. Quick reasons why the Cowboys will win this game or lose this game, and then we'll end it with a score prediction. Go ahead, David.
Okay, so I do think that, one, if Fergie's back, I do think that adds like a huge boost to your offense. So I'd say Ferguson being back, I think watching the film, maybe watching the film and offensive line performs a little bit better. And then I want to say that Zimmer maybe, I don't want to say dumbs it down, but makes it more clear what's supposed to be going on, because I have to assume that there was some sort of miscommunication or something going on for the defensive play that horrendously this last game.
Okay.
I'm going to give you the quickest points ever, man. I'm not ready for this. It's only Tuesday, but I'm going to do it anyways. Overshown's going to play most of the game. All right, so there's reason 1. Ferguson's going to play. Reason 2, CD and Dak have another week of chemistry. I think that's going to be a big deal as the season goes on more and more. And I think we're going to see it start to pay some dividends this week. I think you see 2 touchdowns from CD. Score prediction, you asked for Cowboys 31, Ravens 24.
I forgot to throw mine out. I was going to say 31. I was going to say 31-28. So I have offense still doing well, but defense giving a little bit more points.
Okay. I think the biggest things and biggest reasons why the Cowboys will win this game, Dak Prescott, for one, just finding more chemistry with CD, like you said, Dylan, getting his other guy back, and Ferguson. Cooks, I think, is going to have a better game against these DBs opposite of him, and I just think that's going to help Dak out. Two, I think that the Cowboys are going to finally get some semblance of a run game going on the offensive end, which opens up that play action, really allows Dak to play in rhythm and continue to do what we've been known to see him do.
Which running back has the best game?
I actually think it's going to be Dalvin Cook. He's going to come up just off the top. No, probably Zeke. We'll see. Reason 3, though, I think the Cowboys win the turnover battle. I don't know if they're going to fix their run defensive woes. Probably can, as long as Lamar doesn't go for 100 yards, let's say, on the ground or something crazy on the ground, I think that you have a good chance of winning this game as long as you win the turnover battle. So those are my 3 reasons. My score prediction, I'm going to go crazy here, but I'm going to say 37 for the Cowboys to 27 for the Ravens. I feel good about that.
Defensive touchdown in there.
Hey, we'll see. Maybe Diggs goes pick 6 mode.
I might need Micah Parsons. I bet $5 on a Micah Parsons touchdown every week. It's going to come true one game this year. Strip sack, pick it up, return it. Come on.
There you go.
Man,
any other points before we leave, guys?
Yeah, just my other point, I think that's a good storyline is this is sort of the battle of the MVPs, right? I mean, a lot of people feel like Dak was snubbed last season, snubbed by the guy who's right across from him now. His team's not doing very well. Dak's team didn't really look good. So it's like, which one of you guys can step up? Which one of you guys can really be the MVP for your team to turn this season around and, short season around?
Yeah, I like that.
Absolutely.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I like that as well. Anyways, next Tuesday, I'll be back with new guest or guest, depending. If you haven't already, please do hit that notification bell, hit like, subscribe to the videos. Catch me as well on Twitter at EJ2Savage. Or no, that's my YouTube. Sorry, what am I saying? Boys in the Zone on Twitter. That's in the letter, not I-N. EJ2Savage is the YouTube, so put that / if you're already on YouTube. You already know. Dylan, you want to shout yourself out in your YouTube really quick?
Yeah, youtube.com/LordDilly. And then my Twitter is just at Lord_Dilly. And we do have a really cool community on Twitter. If you listen to Nick Eatman's Storyline podcast on Cowboys.com, I have a fan run page that I run here with another listener, and David's a big part of that. I know, EJ, you're in there as well. But come join that community. We talk about Cowboys, talk about the show, and we have a blast in there. So there you go.
Absolutely.
Oh, the community is called Cowboys Storyliners. Sorry. There you go.
No, you're good. David, any closing words?
None, man. I just appreciate you letting me be a part of this again. I don't really have a show or a YouTube channel or anything like that. I do have something in the works, man. My wife's been really bugging me to do it. She's like, come on, you like doing it so much. Why not just pull the trigger? So I do have something in the works, but I don't want to speak on it until I make it happen. So yeah,
For sure,
I'm just happy to be here.
All right, guys. Peace.
Yeah. Forget what you got, none of it matters until you don't wear from the top. I'm talking non-stop squad. They've been down with me for years and none of them match up.